The sealed gate of Jerusalem has begun to move, its ancient stones grinding against centuries of silence as though awakening from a profound slumber. For millennia, these gates stood closed, a barrier both physical and symbolic, protecting the storied city from external forces while preserving within its walls a sacred narrative of faith, conflict, and hope. Now, as the heavy door shifts on its hinges for the first time in recorded history, an extraordinary chapter unfolds. One that demands reflection on the nature of barriers, the power of revelation, and the unfolding of destiny itself. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. Long before the gates were built, the Hill of Zion bore witness to countless gatherings. Prophets spoke under the open sky, kings marched armies across its slopes, and pilgrims sang psalms in humble submission. The decision to seal one gate, one of the most prominent entrances to the city, was never arbitrary. It represented a collective vow to safeguard something more than land. It sealed away mysteries, ancient scrolls, hidden teachings, promises whispered in the ears of dreamers. Across generations, scholars and mystics debated the meaning of that seal. Was it a promise of preservation or a sentence of exile? The very act of sealing suggested both, a refuge for what must not be lost, and a barrier against forces unworthy to bear its knowledge. When the first tremors ran through the foundations, no herald announced the change. There were no drums, no messengers. Instead, a subtle vibration threaded through Jerusalem's stones, as if the city itself exhaled. Pilgrims on the Via Dolorosa paused mid-step, their sandals brushing the dust of centuries. In the marketplace, merchants felt stalls quiver. The call to prayer still rang out, yet its reverberations seemed to echo differently, more emphatic, as though seeking confirmation of a world in transition. It was a moment of collective breathlessness, a shared anticipation that something long dormant was stirring. Theologically, the moving gate resonates with themes of revelation and renewal. In many scriptural traditions, gates symbolize thresholds between the mundane and the divine, boundaries between human striving and sacred encounter. A sealed gate speaks of a promise deferred, a truth kept hidden until the appointed hour. Now, as the seal unravels, it suggests that hour has come. Scholars debate whether this signals a prophesied visitation, a restoration of forgotten rights, or a broadening of divine favor. Across faith communities, sermons and discussions swirl around the question, what knowledge is ready to emerge, and what preparation does humanity require to receive it? Politically, the gate's sudden motion cannot be divorced from the present tensions enveloping the region. Jerusalem stands at the nexus of competing claims where borders drawn on maps collide with the boundaries of belief. For some, the gate's opening is a portent of healing, a sign that old disputes may yield to a shared recognition of common heritage. For others, it portends upheaval, a shift in power dynamics that could unbalance long-standing arrangements. Diplomats and analysts watch closely, parsing every scrap of intelligence for clues to whether this is a localized phenomenon or the harbinger of seismic realignments in alliances and territories. Economically, the event has already begun to ripple through local and global markets. Investors attuned to geopolitical risk perceive both opportunity and peril. Real estate values near the old city may climb on the expectation of increased pilgrimage and tourism. Simultaneously, insurers adjust policies to account for the unpredictability inherent in a city whose fortunes hinge on an inexplicable shift in a sacred threshold. Yet beyond commerce, there lies a deeper question. What does it mean when the very architecture of a city transforms overnight? How do we value the interplay between the material and the mystical, the prophet-driven and the soul-driven? Culturally, artists find themselves captivated by the symbolism of the moving gate. Painters depict halos of light framing ancient masonry. Poets turn phrases about gates as eyes, portals, and crucibles. Musicians compose melodies that mimic the slow, grinding sound of stone on stone. In galleries and salons, the gate becomes a metaphor for transition, the moment when what was hidden emerges into view. Conversations over coffee and tea swirl with metaphors about personal gates we seal in our hearts, the thresholds we fear to cross, and the revelations that await on the other side. From a historical perspective, the sealed gate connects to a lineage of mysteries that have surrounded Jerusalem since its earliest days. Archaeologists recall the discovery of sealed chambers beneath the Temple Mount, where scrolls revealed aspects of daily life and ritual practice. The concept of sealed entrances is not unfamiliar. It recurs in accounts of secret passageways built to protect priests and prophets, in tales of guardians who kept knowledge safe from marauders. In each instance, the sealing served a dual purpose, to hide and to preserve. Now, with the seal undone, historians anticipate a wealth of context that could reshape our understanding of ancient Jerusalem, its governance, and its spiritual institutions. Psychologically, the opening of the gate taps into universal dynamics of containment and release. We all know the tension of keeping something hidden. Emotions, memories, dreams. The process of sealing can feel protective in the moment, yet suffocating over time. Likewise, the act of uncovering stirs a complex mix of relief, fear, and exhilaration. Collective consciousness around the world registers this moment as a symbolic call to confront what we have locked away. Unhealed wounds, unspoken truths, unfulfilled aspirations. In this sense, the gate's movement echoes within every human heart that yearns to break free from its own constraints. Spiritually, the implications are profound. For many, the gate represents a barrier between the earthly and the heavenly. As it moves, it suggests that the boundary between realms may be blurring. Mystics speak of visions in which light pours through cracks in stone, revealing pathways bathed in ethereal glow. Prayer circles convene near the gate, each participant seeking personal communion with whatever force orchestrates this event. Rituals that were once dormant now rekindle with fervor as seekers feel prompted to offer songs, incense, and meditative silence before the shifting portal. It is an awakening of devotion, not just to an abstract ideal, but to a tangible mystery inviting human participation. Technologically, scholars of archaeoengineering examine the mechanisms that could allow centuries-old masonry to begin moving without modern intervention. Some propose hidden hydraulic systems dating back to the Hellenistic period, ingeniously designed to allow gates to open under specific lunar or solar alignments. Others suggest that subterranean seismic readings might have activated mechanical levers long forgotten. While these theories capture the imagination, the absence of any visible machinery points towards something beyond mere engineering prowess, perhaps a design intended to be impossible, reserved for a moment when faith and physics converge. Philosophically, the event raises questions about determinism and free will. If the gates movement follows an inscrutable plan, does that imply a rigid design for human history? Or does the gates opening signify a new chapter in which humanity gains fresh agency, empowered by the unveiling of long-suppressed knowledge? Debates flourish in academic circles. Some insist that the gate's motion demolishes barriers between fate and choice, while others argue that human response remains the pivotal factor. Ultimately, the philosophical dialogue centers on how we interpret signs in the world, whether as mandates we must obey or as invitations we may choose to heed. Sociologically, the shifting gate serves as a magnet for community formation. Pilgrims and tourists converge in multitudes, each group bringing its own narratives and expectations. Local residents, accustomed to the rhythms of prayer calls and market bustle, now find themselves part of a global phenomenon. Volunteer guides offer tours that blend historical facts with personal testimonies of spiritual encounters. Camps of archaeology enthusiasts set up near the wall, hoping to witness history in motion. In cafes and homes, conversation topics once considered mundane now orbit around a gate that refuses to remain still. Media-wise, the event has generated an unprecedented wave of coverage. Journalists scramble to balance factual reporting with sensitivity to religious significance. Headlines vary from dramatic proclamations of prophecy fulfilled to cautious inquiries about structural integrity. Social media platforms overflow with images and videos, some authentic, some manipulated, each contributing to a digital tapestry of interpretation. In the swirl of hashtags and live streams, the gates movement becomes a shared spectacle, an instance in which ancient stone and modern technology collide to create a collective moment of wonder. Ecologically, the gates movement prompts reflection on the relationship between built heritage and natural forces. Jerusalem's climate, tectonic positioning, and centuries of human habitation have all shaped the city's physical form. As the gate shifts, it reminds us that even the most enduring structures are subject to the dynamics of earth, time, and unseen energies. Conservationists contemplate how to preserve the gate now that it has started moving. Should they intervene to stabilize it, or allow the motion to continue as part of the living tapestry of the city's evolution? Legally, questions arise over ownership and custodianship. The gate falls under multiple jurisdictions: religious trusts, municipal authorities, international heritage organizations. With the gate newly animated, each body asserts claims regarding access, maintenance, and interpretation. Negotiations ensue over who can conduct further examinations, who may guide visitors, and how revenues from enhanced tourism might be allocated. The complexity of overlapping rights reflects Jerusalem's broader legal mosaic, illustrating how a single shift in stone can reverberate through layers of human governance. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on the sealed gate of Jerusalem now moving? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.